Don't know what, I gotta get something. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We'll determine if a quorum is present. I'm present, Councilmember Perry's present. Mr. Jones is absent currently. Aaron is absent, Randy's here, and Chuck is here. Invitation on pledge of allegiance. You can stand, please.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to spend time together as a city. We ask that you give us guidance on all the things we say and all the things we do, and let all those be in your will. We thank you for these firefighters and police officers that are here represented today, and all the folks that work for the city. We just ask that you give us wisdom to do and say the things that you would have us do, and do everything in your will tonight. We just thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, community announcements. Items of community interest may include recognizing citizens and staff for outstanding contributions to the community. A reminder about an upcoming event that's organized or sponsored by the governing body. An announcement of an imminent threat to public safety that has arisen after the posting of this agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I have two officers to introduce. We'll start with Officer Cameron Baxter. He's from Benbrook, but grew up in the Frisco Prosper area. He has an Associates of Arts degree in criminal justice from Collin College. He has 2 years' experience working in the bookend section of the Denton County Jail as a detention officer, which is great experience for someone moving into the field of police work. He enjoys spending most of his spare time with his fiance and family, trying out new places to eat in the Metroplex. And when he's not spending time with family, he enjoys shooting, collecting firearms, enjoying the outdoors, and playing video games with his friends. And he's excited to be afforded the chance to serve the community of Aubrey. And I'll tell you about both of these officers in the Denton County Basic Police Officer class. I was approached by their class coordinator, who said both of these gentlemen are exceptional students, and he pretty much guaranteed me a successful career in law enforcement based on what they showed him throughout that training program. So I was very excited about that. So do you want to swear them in both at the same time, or at a time? Let's
Either way.
Okay, let's do both of them at the same time. And then next, this is Cameron Baxter right here. Next is Cade Mannett. He's originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He moved to North Texas this past May. He received a bachelor's degree from LSU. Interesting. I'm gonna have to talk about that, but. And he's also served 4 years in the Marine Corps. Thank you very much for your service. At LSU, he studied history, political science, and sociology, and in the Marine Corps, he served as an infantry rifleman and a 60mm mortarman. In his free time, he enjoys watching sports, and I hope he likes the Dallas Cowboys, and spending time with my friends and family. He is also excited about working for the Aubrey Police Department, and he's grateful for the opportunity. I'm just very excited about these two young men. I think they're going to do great for us and be with us for a long time, which excites me greatly. So we'll. Mayor.
That was kid, Joe.
Raise your right hand.
I'm never good. Is this one?
Repeat after me. I state your name. I, Cameron Baxter, do solemnly swear. That I will faithfully execute the duties. Of the office of police officer. Of the city of Aubrey. And will to the best of my ability. Preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution and laws of the United States. The state of Texas. The city ordinances of the city of Aubrey. So help me God. Congratulations. We did.
Seal.
Yeah, we gotta put you two next to each other.
Very cool.
Officer Baxter will do a badge pinning ceremony, and he is gonna be pinned by his mother, Cameron. And Officer Mannett will be pinned by his father, James. I have one final gift for y'all. It's very important to me that y'all continue to read and learn. And I'm gonna give up both of you tonight a copy of the Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement. I encourage you both to read it and then share it with those around you, your family. What we do is a very difficult job. You're gonna be on an emotional roller coaster for the next 25 years. And this book will provide you some help in doing that. I have a little message in here for you. But I'm so proud of y'all and I'm forward to working with you for years to come.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I don't know if Chief mentioned it. I couldn't hear it back behind everybody, but the larger of the two can sure eat some chimichangas too. Disgrace the fire department once again. We tried our best. I'm honored to be here tonight to present two separate life-saving awards that happen to occur on the same day, just a few blocks apart, just a few minutes apart. They're both pretty incredible stories. And before we begin, I'd like to have Captain Brooks, our EMS captain, come up. We've changed the way we're going to award our life-saving awards. And I'd like for him to describe it to you, and then we'll move on with awarding some pretty incredible work.
Thank you, Chief. I'm gonna stand up here. Can everybody hear me okay? So back when Chief started, we found that there was really no ceremonial way for us to recognize those individuals in our department who had a CPR save. And what we consider a CPR save is someone that we perform CPR on and they end up walking out of the hospital, okay? So what we've done in, starting last summer is we actually developed a ribbon that the personnel who were involved in the CPR save wear on their Class A uniform, their dress uniform. So in addition to that, we're starting a tradition tonight that is something for them to carry with them all the time, okay? Like a constant reminder of what they've done and kind of a good luck piece, if you will, for future calls. So do any of you know the mythology or the legend behind the Phoenix? So in the fire service, the Phoenix has special meaning because it arose from the ashes, okay? So we felt that a symbol that symbolized rebirth and hope and good fortune would be the appropriate symbol for our medal, okay? So on this medal or coin, it's a challenge coin. It has our scramble or our logo on the front, the AFB logo. On the back, it has the phoenix, okay? Which represents rebirth, hope, and good fortune. And additionally, on the sides, in Latin, it says Vitae Salutaris. That means life saving. In addition, on the sides of the coin, we have our core values that are listed on our patch. That's integrity, honor, humility, and finally, family, okay? Family to us is the most important thing. We treat everybody like that. So anybody whose life we have the opportunity to affect in a positive manner, in a CPR save, that's the most important thing. So all of our members who are involved in CPR save will receive one of these in addition to the ribbons.
Thanks. Right. So for this first one, if we could have Sergeant Ishmael come up, or no, he's on the second, I'm sorry. Second one. Captain Brazel, driver, engineer Preston Brooks, driver, engineer Kyle Covington, firefighter paramedic John Shaw, firefighter paramedic Grant Best, and firefighter EMT Bailey Schlereth. Please come forward. Hey. It's the hardest name for me to say, and it's spelled almost exactly like mine. Is that something? All right, so I'm gonna read through this and describe this incident, and I have to say this is probably one of the most incredible things I've ever heard about. And so it's pretty amazing. I'm proud to be the one to get to talk about it and present you with a life-saving award for your incredible work. So on February 11th of this year, at approximately 5:30 in the evening, Engine 522 and Medic 522 were dispatched to a pregnancy childbirth at the Providence Police Station. Upon arrival, crews made contact with a female patient who was in active labor. Upon further investigation, crews discovered the patient was in fact actively delivering the child in the backseat of her vehicle. They quickly moved the mother and newborn to the back of the ambulance for immediate treatment and transport. While transferring the patient, the child was fully delivered. Once crews had both patients safely in the back of the ambulance, treatments and resuscitation of a 23-week gestation newborn were immediately implemented. I'm going to stop there for just a second. So viability, when we all went to school, is 26, 27 weeks. That's where you start to get to a window of survivability. So we're nearly a month before that. And imagine in your mind, the baby was about this big. So it's pretty incredible what they experienced. After approximately 17 minutes of continuous CPR, a return of spontaneous circulation was achieved prior to arrival at the hospital. The baby was transferred to the ER staff where proper care could be continued. Despite many adverse and challenging conditions on the scene, this crew illustrated composure, tremendous teamwork, and professionalism, which resulted in the best possible patient outcome that could have been expected. So we got an update yesterday that this young man is doing very well. He's been on the ventilator since he was delivered to the hospital, which has been about 6 weeks now. And they're starting to wean him off of that ventilator. The hospital staff reports that they don't expect any neurological deficit, and they expect a full discharge from the hospital in the next 6 weeks or so. So pretty incredible. Just an amazing job, and I'm so very, very proud of the hard work you do every day, and especially on this call. If you would please join me in congratulating these members. Congratulations, sir. Want to come up for a picture or Mayor? Bunch up some, you know. So now, Sergeant Ishmael, you can come down. And Battalion Chief Richard Bowling, and then Captain Brazel, and firefighter paramedic Chase McClurg, and firefighter paramedic John Shaw, and firefighter EMT Emily Hess. So the crews finish up this call and they load the baby in the ambulance, and that they shut the doors on the ambulance, and the ambulance leaves. And so the engine crew, they start to, unwind from the call and think, okay, that was pretty incredible. Let's go back to the station and think about it for a second. But instead, another call came in just down the road at the 7-Eleven in Providence Village. So engine 522 was returning to the station from the pregnancy childbirth when an unconscious person was dispatched at the 7-Eleven in Providence Village, only a few hundred yards from the previous call. While en route, dispatch advised that Aubrey PD, Sergeant Ishmael, was performing CPR on an individual in the store. Engine 522 arrived on scene and took over CPR, finding the patient to be in ventricular fibrillation, which is a deadly cardiac dysrhythmia. The patient was defibrillated 4 times prior to the arrival of the ambulance. Once the ambulance arrived on scene and took over patient care, the patient was found to have a pulse. A rhythm check revealed the patient to be in ventricular tachycardia, which is just one step better than the other one, but still very much dangerous. The patient was cardioverted into a normal sinus rhythm. The patient was moved to the ambulance where he was intubated with a return of spontaneous circulation. The patient was delivered to Medical City Denton and was eventually discharged from the hospital on February 26th with no obvious neurological deficits. Again, despite many adverse and challenging conditions on scene, this crew illustrated composure, tremendous teamwork, and professionalism, which resulted in the best possible patient outcome that could have been expected. Please join me in congratulating these individuals on a job well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. Doubling up.
Make sure it's on record that Matt Jones arrived at 6:06. Have no signups for citizen input here. Anybody on Zoom?
Cool, with that door open. Mhm.
Right, consent items. Items placed on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and non-controversial.
Move to approve.
Second.
Back up a second. Oh, you had more announcements?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
We did the two that were,
I should have got up here quicker.
I did the two that were listed.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a reminder that we have a joint meeting with Aubrey ISD on April 3rd at 6:30 PM. We will be serving dinner to the members of the council for that evening. I have invited all of our directors who can come to be there so that they can see the presentation by the school as well. And we'll have a short Q&A, and we'll have a little bit of information to provide to the districts and the other participants there. Most of you will have noticed that our new agenda software went into effect and debuted today, or first part of this week. This month was supposed to be a hybrid version in which the public would see the former Agenda Center and the staff and the council would see the new agenda software. However, Civic Plus decided to go live while Jenny was on vacation. So that's why you see the difference tonight on what we have. So the staff has been very impressed so far with the new system, and we're looking forward to streamlining our process. Please bear with us over the next few months as we work out the bugs. We had a run through today, and there were a few bugs that we worked out, and we may see some tonight as well. The staff is using the citizen interface. So what you see on the screen tonight is what the citizens can see to interface with our agenda software. So we wanted to debut that and go ahead and use that here tonight. So hope everybody enjoys it. It's really user friendly. I know the council has seen their portion of it where you have your portal in the background. So it's pretty robust. We're proud of it. And also tonight, I want to introduce to you Miss Riley Podleski. She is you've seen her tonight taking a lot of photographs. She has a brand new camera. Riley is our new assistant to the city manager. She's responsible for the new and improved communications that you're seeing all across our platforms. All the videos and posts that you're seeing are coming from Riley. We're glad to have her on our staff, and we look forward to her experience bringing a new face to our public communications. So please welcome Riley. Thank you.
I'll do consent again. Items placed on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and non-controversial. Consent agenda can be acted upon in one motion. Items may be removed from the consent agenda by the request of council, board members, or staff. Consideration action on these items.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Chuck, second by Randy. All in favor? Passes 4-0. New business, new items previously requested for consideration. Presentation, discussion, and action to accept fiscal year 2023 audit from Whitley Penn.
Mayor, Council, you have a couple of handouts. This first one is a presentation. Whitley Penn representative is going to make this presentation. Lauren Eaton. Lauren was the senior on the audit this year. They did a great job. You also have a hard copy of the annual report, the annual comprehensive financial report, ACFR. That's for you to keep. Whitley Penn has completed their independent audit of the city of Aubrey's financial statements for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2023, and has issued an opinion on the financial statements. Lauren Eaton from Whitley Penn will present the annual comprehensive financial report and update the council on the audit process and any required communications, and will answer questions of council members and staff. Lauren.
Hello, City Council, Mayor. Thank you for having me this evening. We've concluded the fiscal year 2023 financial system financial statement audit. The responsibility for the financial statements is for management is responsible for internal controls and the preparation of the financial statements. City council is responsible for ensuring management meets its responsibilities for internal controls and reporting. And our responsibility as internal auditors is to support an opinion of the fair presentation of the financial statements. For the financial statement audit, the purpose is to provide reasonable assurance that users of financial statements can rely on it. We provide an independent evaluation on the reliability of the financial statements, and this is not an assessment of the city's well-being. The financial statement audit includes all of the activity for the year and as of the year ended of September 30th, 2023. But we do not opine on any future financial forecasts or the welfare of the city in the future as well. For our goal, the goal of the audit is to obtain reasonable assurance. This is not absolute certainty. This is reasonable that is free of material misstatement. And this is an overview. The next slide is an overview of the audit process. We get with the planning phase, and this is where we identify our risk and plan the audit around after discussing with management of internal controls, things like revenue, payroll, non-payroll. So we go through our internal control risk assessment, and then we will test the internal controls that we've identified. And then we'll come back and do year-end testing, and that's substantive testing of the balance sheet accounts. And the last piece is where we're here today, and that's presentation of the opinion and issuance of the report. So the purpose of the audit is to provide an opinion. There's three types of opinions that can be possible: a disclaimer, a qualification of opinion, or an unmodified. And this is a clean opinion or the standard. And that's the opinion that we've provided today, is an unmodified opinion. As I stated, the financial statements have a clean opinion. There's no modification. And our audit has been conducted with the general accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards. And these are the standards that we're required to follow. For our audit report, it's a report over internal controls. There was no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, and we also have no instances of non-compliance or fraud to report to you. This next slide is an overview of the statement of net position at the government-wide level. As you can see, there has been an increase in assets due to the bond issuance, but there's also a correspondence increase in the liabilities. Overall, there was an increase in net position of about 70%, 8.2 million. For the statement of activities, this is your revenues and expenditures. Revenues increased about 40% and expenditures increased about 30%. This again resulted in an increase of net position about 4.3 million. This is a similar to the previous slides, but this is the operating fund, just the general fund. And there was a slight increase in cash and receivables, decrease in other assets. But there was, overall, there was an increase of fund balance of 12%. This next slide is going over the revenues and expenditures forecasts, or comparing from the past 5 years. And as you can see, there's been a healthy increase of revenues over expenditures for the past 4 years. This next slide is kind of a more detailed version of the previous one, and it breaks up the operating funds revenues by the major areas. And as you can see, property taxes, sales taxes, charges for services are the main areas, license and permits, and the smaller areas, other revenues, and investment earnings. This is the same, but for the expenditures, the main expenditure is for administration, development, and planning, public safety. We had some capital outlay this year, and everything else is about less than 5%. This next slide goes over the unassigned fund balance, and right now we're sitting at 52%. A healthy fund balance is about 30 to 40%, which is about 3 to 4 months of expenditures. So we, have a very healthy fund balance. Our required communications for you, the significant accounting policies. These are what we test against when we're completing the audit. And this year, there was a new pronouncement that was implemented, GASB 96, for the subscription-based information technology arrangements. And this was implemented this year. For accounting estimates, there's our pension and OPEB, the liability, deferred outflows and inflows, and expenses related to that. And also allowance for uncollectibles related to property taxes, municipal court collections, and utilities. As well as other required communications, we didn't have any difficulty in the audit, any disagreements with management. There was no uncorrected there's no misstatements that were not corrected. And as I said previously, our audit is designed around risk, and the two risks that we presume in all of our audits is management override and revenue recognition. Prior to issuing, we obtained representation from management in the form of our management representation letter. There's no consulting with other accountants that we're aware of. And any issues or any questions that management had our answers were not contingent upon retention of us as auditors. Is there any questions?
Appreciate the time that y'all put into digging through the coffers.
No, thank you for having us. And thank you to Mike and his team. Always great to work with them every year.
Thank you.
You didn't mention it, but the staff does recommend approval of the act for fiscal year end 2023.
Mayor, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2023 audit from Whitley Penn LLP.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Chuck, on favor. Passes 4-0. All right, consider an act on a site plan for Aubrey 377 edition. Block A, Lot 2R, being 2.0984 acres of land situated in the Francisco Trevino survey. Abstract number 1243. City of Aubrey, Denton County, Texas, located immediately east of US 377, south of Concho Street, and north of Surveyors Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This retail is located in the south end of Aubrey near Krugerville. You might be able to see that little white box right there. It's located on the east side of US 377. Concho Street is to the north and Surveyors Road is south. Currently, the site is zoned commercial through a planned development agreement with the city. This is a snip of the proposed site plan. The applicant is proposing to construct 2 building shells with parking and landscaping. The engineer has reviewed and has no further comments. This next slide shows proposed landscaping, which meets the requirements for the site plan. Staff is recommending approval of the site plan. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this application and unanimously recommended approval at their March 14th regular meeting. Your possible actions are to approve the site plan, to approve it with conditions, or deny the site plan. I can answer any questions if you have any.
I'll move to approve the site plan. Second.
Motion by Chuck, second by Jeff, all in favor. Passes 4-0. Consider an act on a final plat for Aubrey 377 edition, Block A, Lot 2R, being replat of Block A, Lot 2, 2.0984 acres of land situated in the Francisco Trevino survey. Abstract number 1243, City of Aubrey, Denton County, Texas, located immediately east of US 377 south of Concho Street, north of Surveyors Road.
This is the same piece of property. We are now reviewing the plat application. The left-hand side shows the existing plat of 2 lots. The property in question is the southern lot here. And the purpose of this replat is to relocate the existing fire lane. So they're just shifting that fire lane over to accommodate the proposed development and the landscaping. The existing plat shows 2.205 acres. It is less now because of TxDOT right-of-way acquisitions. So the utilities provided won't change. Staff is recommending conditional approval of this plat. The signatures are required and there is required a proof of owner and owner's authorized agent. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this again at their last meeting on March 14th and unanimously recommended conditional approval as recommended by staff with the conditions shown 1 and 2. Again, your possible actions for tonight are to approve the plat, approve it with conditions, or to deny the plat.
Make a motion to approve final plat of Aubrey 377 addition of Block A, Lot 2R with the conditions 1 and 2. Being a replat of Block A, Lot 2, 2.0984 acres of land situated in the Francisco Trevino survey. Abstract number 1243, City of Aubrey, Denton County, Texas. Located immediately east of US 377, south of Concho Street, north of Surveyors Road.
I'll second. Motion by Randy, second by Matt, all in favor? Passes 4-0. Consider an act on a minor plat of Gilliland Acres, being 2.0 acres in the Francisco Trevino survey. Abstract 1243 in the City of Aubrey, ETJ, Denton County, parcel ID 241600, generally located at 10429 Redfern Road.
So the property, as you described, is just north of Redfern Road within the ETJ. Because it is in the county, this property is not zoned. It is anticipated to be used for single-family residential purposes. This is a snip of the proposed plat. The property owner is proposing to take their 2-acre lot and subdivide it into 2 1-acre lots. You can see that Redfern Road is down here at the bottom, right? So the property fronts along a 15-foot wide access easement. The utilities provided, water is provided by Mustang SUD. The proposed sewer will be using septic system and electricity by CoServe. The utility providers have provided, have confirmed that the easements provided are adequate. And staff is coordinated with the county regarding the access and the septic, and they have no additional comments. Staff is recommending conditional approval of this final plat. The only item that needs to be addressed is signatures on that plat. Again, planning and zoning reviewed this application and unanimously recommended conditional approval as recommended by staff. Your possible actions are to approve the plat, approve it with conditions, or to deny it. The applicant is here if you would like to speak or have any questions.
Make a motion to approve. Let's see. The act on minor plat of Gilliland Acres being 2.0 acres in the Francisco Trevino survey. Abstract 1243 in City of Aubrey Extension extraterrestrial jurisdiction, Denton County, parcel ID 241600, generally located at 10429 Redfern Road.
I'll second.
Motion by Randy, second by Chuck, all in favor? Passes 4-0. All right, hold public hearing, consider an act on an ordinance amending Exhibit 14A, the zoning ordinance of Chapter 14, zoning of the Aubrey Code of Ordinances to authorize a new land use type with package store and alcoholic beverage sales with an approved specific use permit for property located in the commercial district to provide for a definition of package store, to adopt other provisions relative to the use and SUP, providing a penalty and providing an effective date. Time is 6:40.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Good evening. So this item is a result of an application that the city received for a package store. And at that time, staff realized that the city didn't have regulations in the zoning ordinance that regulated the sale of alcoholic beverages in their city. So I'm gonna go through some history and some regulations that are being proposed this evening. So I mentioned just a moment ago that the zoning ordinance doesn't provide for alcoholic beverage sales within your city. Municipalities customarily adopt zoning restrictions for alcoholic beverage sales. And most of the time it's through an SUP, a specific use permit. And this gives the city council an opportunity to determine if the use is compatible in that particular location. You look at things such as traffic, any type of separation of land uses, and if it is appropriate. You'll remember, I think it was back in February, we had a meeting where we went over some of the alcohol uses, specific type names. This evening, we're just focusing on the commercial zoning district and a package store with a specific use permit to address an item that's the next item on your agenda, which is a specific use permit. You will see a lot of what is presented this evening in your comprehensive ordinance that we are working on to add a new chapter in your zoning ordinance that would regulate the alcoholic beverage sales in all of your non-residential districts. So back in 2007 and 2012, the city council had alcoholic beverage sales items on the local election to determine what and where some of those uses would be permitted. And as I said just a moment ago, that this amendment is specifically for the C commercial district to allow alcoholic beverage sales through a package store and a specific use permit. The definition proposed for a package store is a facility for the sale of beer, wine, and or liquor not for on-premise consumption that derives 75% or more of its gross revenue from the on-premises sale of beer, wine, and or liquor. Mentioned earlier, the process would be to apply for a specific use permit. This would require a site plan or a floor plan to accompany the application. We've outlined a number of items for criteria of approval, really centering on the public health, safety, and welfare to determine if the use is appropriate. Some of the other items in the criteria for approval are the traffic and congestion conditions, TABC permitting requirements, what type of establishment, if there's any public impact, security, parking, environmental requirements such as noise being associated with a bar, expiration compliant, and also compliance with the subdivision regulations. The alcohol sales proximity for offsite consumption in the C zoning district, this is something we're looking for in the comprehensive ordinance as well. Based on your input, is to restrict the proximity of some of these uses that have more than 75% of their sales coming from the sale of alcohol within 1,000 feet of each other. You would also have the opportunity in these regulations to have categories that would lend itself to denial of an SUP. So those would, for example, be if it's incompatible with the surrounding uses or the property, if it's detrimental or offensive to the neighborhood or contrary to the health, safety, and general welfare of the city, or if the use is found to be in non-compliance with any other city ordinances, including the failure to comply with the rest of the ordinance sections. And then the city council would also have the opportunity to add additional conditions on specific use permits. Mentioned earlier about the restrictions for high volume sales within 1,000 feet of a similar use or the exact type use. And then we also have the restriction within the location of public school, private school, church, daycare center, or child care center. And these terms are defined by TABC. Along with the criteria for approval, your opportunity to grant an SUP or add any restrictions, you would also have the opportunity to grant any type of exception with the distance requirements. This would be key in your downtown area or any type of entertainment district that you might have in the future. In summary, the proposed amendment would allow for alcoholic beverage sales at package store through a specific use permit in the commercial district. We're also providing for the definition of a package store in the ordinance before you this evening. And as mentioned earlier, we are looking at the comprehensive ordinance as a new section in your zoning ordinance that would address alcoholic beverage sales and different types of uses, whether it's restaurants, private clubs, brew pubs, breweries, wineries, and the whole gamut of terms. And you will be seeing that soon. We're trying to take care of an immediate application right now. That's the next agenda item. I would be, notifications were sent out as required by your zoning ordinance as well as Texas Local Government Code. We have not received any letters in support or in opposition of this item. Staff is recommending approval as presented. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0 in favor of this item. And this evening you have the opportunity to approve the zoning ordinance as amended, make any changes or conditions, revisions, as well as to deny the zoning ordinance. The agenda packet includes the ordinance that has been vetted through your city attorney, and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
There's a public hearing, so any input from anyone here? Anyone on Zoom?
That location's where Cheers used to be, right? Years ago?
Well, that's on the next.
Oh,
Specific.
okay.
Closing the public hearing at 6:48.
As far as providing a penalty goes, can you explain that? I mean, the penalty would,
It's kind of a standard language, you know, a maximum fine per day per offense.
It's a Class C misdemeanor in the event they would do anything in violation of the city's ordinance. We could write a citation. We could also enforce it in district court if they had any zoning violations and also through injunctive relief. So there's a lot of remedies we have, but that's fairly standard language. And anytime the council adopts any ordinance that imposes a penalty, we have to state that and publish it. Thank you.
I'll move approval of an ordinance amending Exhibit 14A, the zoning ordinance of Chapter 14 zoning of the Aubrey Code of Ordinances to authorize a new land use type of package store for alcoholic beverage sales with an approved specific use permit for property located in the commercial district.
I'll second.
Motion by Matt, second by Chuck, all in favor? Passes 4-0. All right, hold a public hearing, consider an act on an ordinance amending exhibit 14A, the zoning ordinance of chapter 14. Zoning of the Aubrey Code of Ordinances to allow a specific use permit authorizing a package store for alcoholic beverage sales to be located and operated at 928 South US 377, Suite 110, Aubrey, Denton County, Texas, providing a penalty for violation and providing an effective date. The property is on commercial. Time is 6:50.
So 928 South 377, Suite 110 is where Cheers used to be located, correct?
I don't know the name, but I do know that
Was
there
a-
was a package store there at one time.
Yeah,
There's currently a karate.
I think it's empty now.
Yes,
It's the fire nutrition one?
yes, I believe that.
That one went out of business? No way. Didn't know that.
Okay, so the property is just west of the US 377 frontage. And south of High Meadow Drive, you have Chicken Express just to the north. This is an existing developed shopping center. And it is the southernmost suite within the northern building. We had received an application for a package store. And as I outlined in the previous item, you have criteria for approval, such as traffic and congestion. It's an existing shopping center with adequate parking. The TABC compliance, the applicant has applied for their permit. Their next step is the city to have the city sign off. The type of establishment, it's a package store. And the public impact would prefer that the applicant provide that statement. And security, the owner operator shall always provide the adequate number of employees to ensure safety. We have also included in the ordinance you just approved, the chief of police has an opportunity to review and make any recommendations on an application. And the chief of police has received this application and does not have any comments or conditions at this time. There is adequate parking, environmental requirements. The owner operator will comply with any nuisance ordinance requirements. And the expiration is if there is a change in occupancy or change of ownership. This is also a way to make sure an SUP that if it is operating as it should be, it doesn't get out of control. But if something changes and someone else moves in and it turns into, kind of a different operation, this is council's opportunity to be able to make sure whoever's going to go in with a specific use permit plays by your rules. The criteria for approval continue. The application complies with the subdivision ordinance of developed site. And the package store proposed is not within 300 feet of a public school, a private school, daycare, et cetera, and it is not within 1,000 feet of another package store. The city council has an opportunity to add any special conditions or requirements to this and also determine if the application meets the requirements that we outlined in the item before you. Notifications per your zoning ordinance and Texas local government code have been provided. No letters in support of the SUP have been received. We did receive a letter and email representing 4 property owners that were received in opposition to the SUP application. That information is online in the agenda packet. And the SUP application is recommended for approval. The Planning and Zoning Commissions reviewed this item at their last meeting and recommends approval 4-0. So this evening you have the opportunity to approve the SUP or approve it with conditions or deny the SUP. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Just one thing I would like explained is if this is approved, they build, what happens if somebody wants to open a daycare in the,
They get to continue operating and using
okay,
their permit. It's
because they had it there first? I
Yes,
just-
sir.
okay.
I'd like to know what, because I can't get it to pull up on my phone. What was the beef of the property owners that were in opposition? What was the,
They didn't want it that close to their homes.
oh, it's, okay,
It didn't meet the neighborhood.
okay, I got you.
Ellen Eve, did the applicant have a statement?
Is the applicant here this evening or online? I know they were online during the planning and zoning meeting.
One of the things you mentioned on there.
Okay.
And it is a public hearing.
Brian Brown, 7175 Ridge Road. One of the things you mentioned was not within 1,000 feet of similar businesses. It looks like it's right next door to a vape shop. I don't know if that matters, but they feel kind of similar.
Me to answer that now. The vape store doesn't sell alcohol, so it's based on alcohol sales.
Any other comments? We'll close the public hearing at 6:57. Someone.
Mayor, I move to approve the ordinance amending Exhibit 14A, the zoning ordinance of Chapter 14 zoning of the Aubrey Code of Ordinances to allow special use permit authorizing package store for alcoholic beverage sales to be located and operated at 928 South US 377 Suite 110 Aubrey, providing a penalty for violation, providing an effective date.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Chuck, all in favor? Passed 4-0. I hold a public hearing, consider an act on an ordinance annexing approximately 25.148 acres of land located at 1817 Springfield Road and out of the Francisco Trevino Survey, abstract number 1243, Denton County, parcel ID 52100, into the city limits of the city of Aubrey, adopting a municipal services agreement and providing an effective date. Time is 6:58.
This next item is the annexation of the property that's generally located at the northeast corner of McNatt in Springville. Back in August of 23, the city council entered into an ETJ development agreement for the property that would provide for annexation and zoning for the property. So this is the next step in that process. We're annexing it, or you all are annexing it at this time. Back in February, you all adopted the resolution to accept the annexation petition as well as direct staff to enter into the written services agreement for the property. We have received that at this time. The notifications were executed and as required, and the municipal services agreement has been executed. Staff is recommending approval of the annexation ordinance at this time.
All right, any comments on this public hearing? Soon, we'll close the public hearing at 6:59.
I'll move, we approve an ordinance annexing approximately 25.148 acres of land located at 1817 Spring Hill Road.
Second.
By Matt, second by Jeff, all in favor? Passes 4-0. All right, hold a public hearing, consider an act on ordinance on a change of zoning from unzoned land previously located in the city of Aubrey, ETJ, to planned development district and general retail and government uses on approximately 25.148 acres of land located at 1817 Spring Hill Road, Denton County, parcel ID 52100. Time is 7 p.m.
Mayor and council, this is the same piece of property that you just annexed. And once again, based on the ETJ development agreement back in 23, it provided for the annexation and zoning. So this item is the zoning. It is recommended for a PD, Planned Development District. And it's comprised of a little over 3 acres at the immediate northeast corner. As general retail, you can see that area in blue. The remaining portion is reserved for government uses. That's being proposed as a city park, as well as some utility infrastructure, the northeast part of the property. So the general retail tract, and it's part of a planned development district that, well, the whole property is, but the general retail tract has some specific items tied to it. A specific use permit will not be required if a daycare center would like to be constructed there. A restaurant including a drive-through, drive-in, or pickup shall be permitted, is what's being proposed. The base code just says restaurant, and it's not clear, so we're making that clear. We have recommended, and the applicant has agreed to some prohibited uses, being variety stores that are defined as a store which sells at retail an assortment of physical goods, products, merchandise directly to the consumer, including food or beverage for off-premises consumption, household products, personal grooming and health products, and other consumer goods. And also automobile parking lots and structures as a primary commercial use. Obviously, those would certainly be supportive if you had a main use such as a structure or retail center, as well as outside storage not being appropriate for this location. The government uses tract will have a base development standards of the general retail, but it also will have the opportunities as the government use definition in your zoning ordinance. And as I mentioned earlier, it will accommodate a city park, an opportunity pump station, and other government uses that we might not know of at this time. The notifications as required have been completed. No letters of support or in opposition have been received. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended this item 4-0 at their last meeting. And this evening you have the ability to approve this planned development district zoning ordinance, approve it with conditions, or deny the PD in a PD zoning ordinance. And I believe the applicant's here this evening. If you have any questions for them.
I'd like to say thank you to Brdresh. You've listened when you've met with staff, and you saw that we need parks, and for everyone, no one probably knows this, but that 21 whatever acres was donated to the city to be used as a park. So thank you for that.
What is it?
He said he's an Aubrey resident.
Oh, there you go.
Fantastic.
Any other comments on this? We'll close the public hearing at 7:04.
I'll move, we approve an ordinance changing the zoning from unzoned land previously located in the city of Aubrey extraterritorial jurisdiction to planned development district, general retail and government uses on approximately 25.148 acres of land located at 1817 Spring Hill Road.
I'll second.
Motion by Matt, second by Randy, all in favor? Passes 4-0. All right, consideration action on a preliminary plat for the Lloyd property, project 53 for 300 residential lots. One lift station lot, 4 open spaces lots, 1 public park lot, 1 general retail lot, 1 city dedicated general retail lot being 47.275 acres of land situated in the J Bridges Junior Survey, abstract number 36, within the city of Aubrey, ETJ, Denton County, Texas. The property is generally located west of FM 2931, north of Frontier Parkway, and east of the future Silverado Parkway.
Mayor and council, just last month, we went through the ETJ development agreement on this property. And we had a lot of development standards to go through. And this evening, we are looking at the preliminary plat for the Lloyd property. It is immediately west of 2931, just north of Frontier Parkway, and will be east of the future Silverado Parkway. The proposed preliminary plat that you have in your agenda packet is consistent with the concept plan and development regulations for the property. I put the concept plan in because the preliminary plat's a little hard to read, but it does include all of the elements that were in the development agreement that was just approved last month. It provides for 300 lots, a couple of general retail lots, a public park lot, and then a few open space, private open space HOA lots, as well as a lift station lot. This is the western half of the property on the preliminary plat. It falls on 2 sheets. This is the eastern half. The utilities are being provided by Mustang Special Utility District. The city engineer has reviewed the preliminary water, sewer, and drainage plans and does not have any additional comments or requirements at this time. The recommendation for the preliminary plat is that it be approved with the condition that any of the parking that's adjacent to the open spaces, the parking spaces that were required through the development agreement, that they be designed as off-street parking spaces and not shared with the public right of way. And so that they're, real parking spaces and not interfering with vehicular traffic. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended this item 4-0 at their last meeting, and you have the opportunity to approve the preliminary plat, approve it with any additional conditions, or deny the preliminary plat. And I think the applicants might be here if you have any question for the applicants.
Remind me what the annexation aspect of this was.
I couldn't hear what you said, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the.
Thanks.
I'll move we conditionally approve the preliminary plat subject to the recommendation from planning and zoning.
Second,
I'll second.
motion by Matt, second by Jeff, all in favor? Passes 4-0. Consideration and action on a preliminary plat for High Country Phase 10 for 2 lots being 30.312 acres situated in the James Bridges Junior Survey, abstract number 36 within the city of Aubrey, ETJ, Denton County, Texas. The property is generally located west of the McNatt Road, north and south of future Frontier Parkway, and south of Byron Road.
This next preliminary plat is for High Country Phase 10. The properties at the northwest corner of McNatt and future Frontier Parkway. It is in the ETJ. It is not within an ETJ development agreement at this time. And the purpose of the preliminary plat is to dedicate right-of-way for Frontier Parkway and to accommodate a land sale. The utilities, once again, are being provided by Mustang Supply Utility District. the engineer has reviewed the preliminary plat. It consists of 2 lots and right-of-way dedication. So the first lot is the lot north of Frontier Parkway and the second lot is south of Frontier Parkway. This is the preliminary plat exhibit. The preliminary plat's recommended for approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommends it for approval at 4-0 at their last meeting. And you can approve the preliminary plat, approve it with conditions, or deny the preliminary plat. And I believe the applicants are online if they would like to speak, or if you all have any questions for them.
Do you know if the right of way for Frontier Parkway is?
I believe that's 120. If you need to do that. Yes, sir, is 120 feet of right of way.
I'll move we approve the preliminary plat for High Country Phase 10.
I'll say.
Motion by Matt, second by Randy. All in favor? Passes 4-0. Consider an act on a preliminary plat for Sandbrook Ranch Phase 14, being 26.210 acres of land situated in the William Lumpkin Survey, abstract number 730, and the Frederick H. Pollard Survey, abstract number 995, City of Aubrey, ETJ, Denton County, Texas, located between FM 2931 and FM 1385, and south of FM 428 and Overbrook Parkway.
So this is major development that is taking place. And I've got the map showing both of the next two, this and the following agenda items. So the phase 14, this is tiny little red, and here's the city of Aubrey. So this is currently in your ETJ. And then this is phases 15 and 16. That will be the next agenda item. This is the concept plan for Sandbrook Ranch. It is not zoned, but is governed by a development agreement with the city that was executed in 2005. There are 4 different residential categories, sizes of lots within this development. And the development agreement also allows for variances in order to accommodate possible variances in locations, topography, and size. 10% variance from the minimum lot area, width, depth, and or dwelling unit size is authorized without need for further approval. So there can be some wiggle room within these sizes. This is a snapshot of your major thoroughfare plan, and I have highlighted where Sandbrook Ranch is in relation. So we've got this red, this is Sandbrook Ranch area, and the major roads in this area. Here is in blue, which is a proposed thoroughfare right-of-way of 140 foot of right-of-way. And that is FM 1385.
Can't be right. 2931.
No.
Oh, Sandbrook, okay. Yeah, I think it's, sorry.
So this is the phase 14. It covers 26.210 acres. It will create 43 SF 7.2 lots and 80 SF 5.5 lots and 2 common area lots, as well as right of way. The lot dimensions are consistent with the development agreement. The setbacks shown on this plat are at 20 feet, but the development agreement mentions 10 feet or 18 feet. But the development agreement also allows for setbacks greater than the minimum. And so the drainage and paving will be owned and operated by the MUD and the HOA. The right-of-way dimensions are consistent. And the minimum 4-foot sidewalks will be built by the home builder, a foot from the right-of-way. The subdivision, the utilities will be provided by Mustang, Special Utility District for water and sewer. CoServ will provide the electricity and Atmos will provide gas. I've coordinated with utility companies and they have confirmed that this development has provided adequate easements. And I have also coordinated with the county and they have no comments. So I'm recommending conditional approval of this preliminary plat. And the follow item needs to be addressed. It's just the signatures. This item was provided to planning and zoning and they recommended, they voted in favor 4-0 for conditional approval. So you, possible actions are to approve it with additional conditions, or to deny the plat.
Were there any conditions for the next item?
For the following item, yes.
Okay, both, I guess. How many more phases are there? Is 15 and 16, are those the final phases?
We're getting close. If I'd have to
You're
go
right
back to
now.
the concept. I think we're getting close to being,
Cause that's the cow fields that they're.
Are they, oh, they're getting rid of that?
That's 15 and 16.
That's gonna stay, I thought it was part of it. It's pretty nice. What are they gonna do to the cows?
I'm gonna eat them.
yeah, you can see the areas right over here where it's just kind of like dirt. So that is the last.
Those are the last pieces, okay. Can I move to approve preliminary plat for item 19 and 20, subject to any conditions?
19 and 20.
Right?
Do what?
Looking at online, it's nothing.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at, both preliminary plats for phase 14 and then phase 15 and 16.
We haven't, we'll do one at a time, so I haven't even read the next one.
Okay, then let's move to approve the preliminary plat for Sandbar Ranch phase 14,
Second.
subject to the condition listed.
So amended second.
Well, Matt, second by Jeff, all in favor? 4-0. All right, consider an act on a preliminary plat for Sandbrook Ranch phases 15 and 16, being 75.771 acres of land in the William Duncan Survey.
So, yes, this one fronts along, 1385. And there are some, kind of issues because TxDOT is acquiring right of way, along this corridor. Once again, this is fairly consistent with the development agreement and the setbacks, the front yard setbacks are shown at 20 feet instead of the 10 or the 18 that the development agreement mentions. The only thing that I would like to address here is that there are, the plat shows a variable width right of way. So we're recommending that the applicant provide half of the required right of way. The right of way, according to your thoroughfare plan, is 140 feet. So half of that would be 70. They have not provided street names. So they need to do that for police and fire to review. The plat doesn't have signatures. And then this does not show this, but I was contacted by UTRWD after this was reviewed by planning and zoning. And they also have comments because there is a utility easement along that same corridor. And they do have comments. And the developer, I spoke with the developer this morning and they are very amenable to working through those issues with with the utilities and providing the additional right of way. And providing the street names and the signatures. So, staff is recommending conditional approval of this plat with the three conditions shown here were presented to P and Z, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0 to conditionally approve this plat. But as I mentioned, I've gotten the UTRWD comments after P and Z, so I would like to add a fourth condition for the to meet the conditions noted by UTRWD as well.
The 70 foot of right of way give next out enough room to. When I know they've got schematic out. I don't know where they are in design, so.
I think there's, my understanding was that they had public meetings.
Yeah.
And so they're still in the process, is my understanding. And the client has already been in negotiations for right of way text acquisition, so they're accordingly. There are some issues because of all the utilities there, and most of those utilities are going to move as well. So they're in negotiations. Should be ironed out before we get started.
Yeah, I can't have anything delayed.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to create the problem.
Please, no. Okay, so I'll move to approve the preliminary plat for Sandmark Ranch phases 15 and 16 with the three conditions listed from P and Z and the fourth condition so listed today.
Matt, second by Randy, all in favor? Passes 4-0. Consideration and action on ordinance amending Article 1.02 Administration of Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Aubrey Code of Ordinances to adopt an official boundary map of the city, including the ETJ, authorizing staff to amend the maps as approved by council, providing for the maintenance of an official copy of the map and providing an effective date.
Mayor, council members. This ordinance amending section 102, the Aubrey Code of Ordinances, adopting the official boundary map that we've been waiting on for a long time. We've been working hard. Depicting the municipal boundaries, including the ETJ as required by statute. Staff and engineers have been working on this for quite a while, and we are at a point where we can present for your consideration tonight. You should have a copy of the map at your desks. Please keep in mind that the map is a living document that is subject to update through actions by the council. Therefore, this ordinance contains an authorization and direction to staff to make changes to the map for territory annexed or disannexed pursuant to any ordinance adopted by the council. And an example of that would be tonight with the Trivedi property. It does not show to be in the city limits on this map. So we will change that in the next 60 or so days. As you have a couple of more annexations coming over your next few meetings, and once we get those in a bundle, we'll contact the engineer, we'll add that to the map, and we'll keep the map updated as we go. This keeps us from having to come back to council every meeting with an annexation to change the boundary. It's a lot of information. We do have this in layers so that we can pull these layers off and we can see certain things on the map. This is just what will be published, and this is everything that we have. If you'll notice at the bottom, it outlines all of the annexations that have happened all the way back into the 60s. Or is that 1924? I can't read that. It took a long time to get it together. The engineers have gone through every single annexation ordinance and looked at the boundaries to make sure that this map is 100% correct.
Can I get that digitally?
We have it,
Is
I
it?
mean, the shape files.
Yeah.
I believe we can.
Okay.
We're just waiting for the approval to finalize everything, and then we'll tell the engineers what we need.
I'm sure.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance amending Article 1.02 administration of the Chapter 1 General Provisions of Aubrey Code of Ordinances to adopt an official boundary map of the city, including the extraterrestrial jurisdiction, authorizing staff to amend the map as approved by city council.
A second.
Motion by Randy, second by Chuck, all in favor? Passes 4-0.
We just got, yeah.
Consideration action on the ordinance amending various sections of the appendix A fee schedule in order to amend fees related to building miscellaneous permits and inspection fees, contractor registration, moving buildings, business, code enforcement, utilities, water rates, planning and development fees, public infrastructure fees, and animal control fees, and providing an effective date.
Mayor and council, recently or you approved a new mowing contract and also an animal control services agreement. Due to those new contracts and agreements, we amended the fee schedule to be consistent with those agreements. While we were amending it, we also did a little bit of cleanup and made some minor adjustments to several areas. Some of the fees were in the general and administrative section. Those fees included adding some of the general open records information from the Attorney General chart, such as retrieval of maps, records off-site, postage shipping. And then also we added some body worn camera recordings. We removed some of the obsolete material and methods that we would not be providing, such as the floppy disk or as far back as you want to go there. We removed those. The building related fees included an increase to the revised new building permit. We had an issue with this last year where we're receiving a lot of revised permits after they've submitted them. So we adopted a fee for that. The code enforcement fees, we pretty much just cleaned that area up to apply the third-party fees if we were to remove tires, hazardous waste, mow, those kind of things for code violations. And we have an administrative fee of $100 and we raised that to $150. In the utility section, we increased the residential utility account deposit from $90 to $125. Our monthly service average or all the services combined together is around $100. And normally, when we have an account closeout, it's a 2-month bill. So when we apply that deposit, we still are outstanding at least a month worth of water. In the 2023 year, we wrote off $8,821.38 in uncollected revenue. So we feel it's important that we raise that up a little bit to try to capture some of our revenue. We had some adjustments to water meters. We didn't have a price in there for a 4-inch meter, and with our school modification, they required a 4-inch meter. And our 3-inch meter was at $1,100 and they cost us $2,500. So we made that increase. Development fees, we made some minor adjustments to the plat application fee. And then the animal control fee is just consistent with the new agreement. There was very little or significant increase there. And staff's recommended approval of the ordinance amending appendix A of the fee schedule. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Have any questions? No.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance amending various sections of appendix A fee schedule.
A second.
Motion by Randy, second by Jeff, on favor. Passes 4-0. Consideration action on the ordinance amending chapter 4 of business regulations to amend and adopt new provisions as part of article 4.02 alcoholic beverages to allow the sale and consumption of certain alcoholic beverages on city property during special events held or sponsored by the city, providing a penalty for a violation and providing an effective date.
Mayor, council members, as you know, the Aubrey hosted events is currently the largest attraction in downtown. To allow for on-premises alcohol consumption during those events, we're proposing an amendment to this ordinance. This is an area that we have received some comments on that attendees that have suggested that we offer this. And it's pretty consistent with other cities, especially in the downtown district. It also would help, we think, kind of be the stepping stone for if we have some breweries or wine tasting or things like that that want to come into downtown and open a business. We thought this would kind of get things started off. We've put together a draft policy. So if you approve this tonight, our first event that we would offer this would be the summer music series. Where our event coordinator is coordinating with our chamber. The chamber would like to be able to sell. That would also give them a little bit of revenue for some of their operations. And if it's successful, then we would possibly roll in something to the Peanut Festival. Our policy would obviously be reviewed by all department heads, and we have already met with the chief of police, and he's on board with some of the information. But our policy would include regulations for the last meeting compliance. Obviously, the TABC does that, but we would require that it's all in compliance with their standards. We would be monitoring and putting in procedures for age verification. We'd have a designated area so that the sales are only in that one area. The beverages obviously couldn't be taken away from the event area. There would be a perimeter. Authority to refuse sell or cut off if need be. Measures to ensure that there's no underage drinking. Removing beverages before the event, like I mentioned. We also want to regulate glass for the park for the safety. And of course, that policy would be brought to you guys as well. That's all I have.
I move to approve an ordinance amending chapter 4 business regulations to amend and adopt certain new provisions as part of Article 4.02 alcoholic beverages to allow the sale and consumption of certain alcoholic beverages on city property during special events held or sponsored by the city, providing a penalty for violation.
Quick question, Steph. This wouldn't prevent people from bringing a cooler to the summer music series.
That would be something that we would need to address, whether they could bring in outside. I think it could become a problem if they brought it in from outside, rather than purchasing it. We wouldn't really have control of the underage, but that is something that we would definitely need to discuss with, legal and with our chief.
Do we need to table this until we get that?
Yeah, I think.
Worked out. Okay, how do I back out of my motion?
Okay, so this ordinance only allows for the sale of alcohol.
So it's not
Well,
changing
it's
anything
not-
that's already in place.
No, sir. You're only allowed to have alcohol, and we've defined public place to be public property, and we've defined it to be during a special event on public property. And this is all about the sale of alcohol. So there is nothing in here that allows a person to just possess, and it says, it's unlawful for any person to possess any alcoholic beverage, enter upon any public property except during a special event. If you want to make sure that's buttoned up, then we can just add to the end of that, unless it is purchased at this by a vendor at the special event. Maybe that's the fix to it, because there's a possession. I mean, they're not supposed to have it on park property unless it is something that is during a special event. So, but I get that concern. It's a valid point and a great concern. So perhaps the fix to that is just to add down to the prohibited section, except during a special event. Let's see, I'm trying to.
Patricia, the
Exact
I
words.
think the concern is we don't want to prohibit.
Oh, you do not want to
From them,
prohibit.
from them
Okay.
bringing their own.
Right now, it's unlawful. The only prohibition we have, so maybe it's already there what you want done. I was reading it the other way. It's unlawful for a person to possess any alcoholic beverage, enter upon the property except during a special event. So the only possession charge that you would get would be if you had it on public property and a special event was not occurring, or if you had it on private property. So there's two components. It has to be public property and during a special event.
So this makes it legal, prior it was not.
It possesses it, yeah. So there is not anything in here that says you have to purchase it there. That's why I was quickly trying to come up with some words. I thought that's where you were going, but you're trying to go the other way. Okay, I'm good.
Everybody
carries
a cooler.
Okay. Okay, well, it is,
Okay, go legal
We
for
don't have that.
dummies.
yeah, we don't have anything that prohibits you. We don't have anything now that requires you to purchase it while at the event. And the only prohibition that we have is for a person to possess, enter upon public property except during a special event. So you can't roll over there on Saturday
Nothing going
with your
on.
cooler unless there's a special event occurring. So it's two parts.
We need to be sure and post that at the park too.
This is not a general, you can have alcohol in the parks. This is you may have alcohol at a special event on public property. And public property includes, in the definitions, it's more than just the parkland. It means parks, rights of way, streets, alleys, other lands leased, owned, and are controlled by the city of Aubrey.
And special event is defined.
It means any festival, farmer's market, or other similar gathering open to the public, but it has to be sponsored or organized by the city of Aubrey, or to which the city of Aubrey is a partner with another organization. So it is only when Aubrey is sponsoring that event does this even happen.
We need to post that if we're gonna change this down at the park somewhere. Otherwise, people are gonna mosey up there with a cooler of beer and get in trouble. You know what I mean?
On any rent.
They might. Oh, you haven't because your yard is as big as the park, but that's a whole different story.
We'll definitely need to roll out
We
plenty
need-
of education, because they'll need,
about this as a bigger subject.
they'll need to be aware that it's not a city event, so we would definitely need to. We're not really changing anything other than the sale at events.
That's it. We're not changing the fact that people can bring a cooler if they want to.
During
Correct?
special event.
During special events. Okay, then I stand by my motion.
Okay, I'll second.
All right.
Motion by Jeff, second by Chuck, all in favor? Pass 4-0.
I still want to have a discussion about it.
Consideration action on approving the 2024 Consumer Price Index adjustment to municipal telecommunications right-of-way access line rates.
Mayor and Council, this is a housekeeping item. The city is asked on an annual basis by the Public Utility Commission of Texas to approve or reject a CIP adjustment to right-of-way access lines. Historically, the city has accepted the CPI adjustment recommended by the PUC. And I've given you a sheet that has the historical rates on it. You can see they go up a couple of pennies every year. So we, if we elect to accept it, we don't need to do anything. We would just need to let them know if we are going to reject it. The staff recommends approval of the consumer price index adjustment to the municipal telecommunications right-of-way access limits.
I'll move to approve the 2024 Consumer Price Index adjustment to municipal telecommunications right-of-way access line rates.
I'll second.
Motion by Matt, second by Randy, all in favor? Passes 4-0. Discussion and direction regarding setting a date for a special meeting of the city council.
Mayor, council members, as I mentioned earlier, we have some annexations coming up. I think it's roads are at C. Is that right, Patricia? Roads are at annexation C. When we have a road annexation C, we have to have two public hearings and they have to fall within 20 days of each other. So therefore, your meetings are normally 30 days apart. So we need to have a special meeting for some annexations the week of the 15th through the 19th. And you know, of course, how staff is, we'll probably throw a couple of little items on there for you too. But mainly it's for these annexations that week. So you'll have a public hearing the week of the 15th. And then on your regular meeting on the 25th, you'll be considering the annexations for approval.
I just can't do the 16th.
Do what, Chris?
Can't do the 16th.
Oh,
Do you want to stay with Thursday on the 18th?
That's fine with me.
You don't have to be here to.
Wednesdays.
I'm fine unless you start adding.
Well, we may have a few things, but we'll make sure it's not anything that needs legal. Okay. Thursday's good. We'll just wait. We're only a week away from the next meeting, so pick something. We do have court at 5. We'll try a different day.
court's on the 18th. Wednesday.
We can alert the judge and let him know. We need to have, we can change it to 6:30 if you wanna push it to 6:30. We shouldn't be here long. Either day.
I can do any day that week.
Okay.
For a gallery, but for a small special meeting, that would be okay.
4:18 at 6.
That works for me.
4:18 at 6 p.m.
4:18 at 6.
All right, receive a presentation from the fire chief regarding Aubrey Fire Department. Provision of fire protection and emergency medical services to citizens in special districts, mutual aid, existing fire plan, and general services information. Discussion regarding the same.
Mayor, do you mind if I start this off?
Go ahead.
Mayor and council members, before Chief Slaughter begins his presentation and Q&A, I wanted to take a moment, excuse me, to clarify a few items of misinformation that have been communicated with the public through the Elm Ridge Water District website regarding the city of Aubrey. Keep in mind that there are a large number of inaccuracies to their website comments regarding Aubrey, but I'm only going to address those that I think are most important to the council and the citizens we serve. Next slide. First, in an inaccurate statement on the Elm Ridge website, they say in June of 2023, the city of Aubrey presented a proposed budget to the districts that consisted of 29% increase for fire services. Let's take a look here at the screen at this cost analysis proposed and presented in June and July of 2023 to the districts when the city of Aubrey requested an annual increase for providing fire services. Chief Slaughter is going to cover some of the information on this later, but I wanted you to see two important numbers in this analysis. On the left, highlighted in yellow, you'll see the first number, $2,179,334. That was the fiscal 2022 district approved budget amount for fire service. The second number, $2,583,000, was the amount requested by the city of Aubrey for fire services in the 2023 fiscal budget year. If you'll take a moment to do the math here, that is an increase of 18.5%. I've tried to work these numbers to come up with a scenario where you get 29%, and I've yet to find it. So if I'm not exactly sure where the districts derive the 29%, and it is extremely misleading to the public regarding what we proposed to the district in 2023. As you're aware, the districts have entered into new contracts with another entity for fire service that will occur in the future. And upon review of those agreements, the first year increase to those districts over what they pay the city of Aubrey now would be a 17.8% increase based on current housing numbers. I'm assuming here that using a 29% increase looks a lot worse in comparison to our 18.5% increase. Next slide. The districts have stated that they are due a large amount of revenue from Aubrey contracts with other entities because they, the districts, pay 100% of the cost of Fire Station Number 2, and the station responds to areas outside the districts. I want to say here that that the districts, regardless of what they say or believe, absolutely do not pay 100% of the cost of Fire Station Number 2. To say otherwise is misleading to the public when in fact they only cover 50%, 56% of the overall costs. So who pays for those remaining costs for the station? The city of Aubrey through contracts with other entities and taxpayer funds. So I have no problem at all acknowledging my previous statements made to this council, to our citizens, to our staff, and to the districts that the city of Aubrey has been subsidizing the costs of those stations, of that station, for a number of years. Highlight the slide. Bottom. On the bottom left of this slide, you will see that the staffing alone, salary, benefits, and overtime for the 18 fire personnel at station number 2 is $1,961,324. It should be impossible for anyone to represent or even believe that $2,179,334 would be 100% funding for a fully functioning fire station that contains a fire apparatus, an ambulance, a brush truck, a standby ambulance, and 18 firefighters and paramedics. On the right side of this slide, let's take a look at the real fire department costs for fiscal year 2024. For the total Aubrey Fire General Fund budget for the fire department for the 2 fire stations is $6,687,000. Our debt service is $534,000. Our fleet replacement that you approved last year is $624,000. That's a total cost of $7,800,000 for 2 fire stations. If you divide that number in half, you have $3,923,000 as a cost per station. Current amount paid by the districts, $2,179,334. That equates to 56% of that station, not 100%, 56%. If you look at our overall budget, the percent of the total budget paid by the district is 28%. Remember that number a little bit when Chief Slaughter tells you how many calls that station answers in those districts. He has a percentage for you. Next slide. Take a look for just a moment at some comparison cities that we looked at to see what they were paying for their fire stations. Princeton, these are per cost stations, and keep in mind, these do not include debt service. The number I gave you for the Aubrey Fire Station includes debt service. This does not. So Princeton, 2.6 million, Decatur, 2.8 million, Anna, 2.9. You can see the rest all the way down to Prosper and Salina at 4.3 and 4.1 million per station. Again, this does not include debt service. And if you'll notice those 2 asterisks right there, those are stations that are in progress. So they will have debt service associated with those. These numbers are just for personnel and operation of those stations. None of these comparable cities can operate fire station for $2,179,344. The claim by Elm Ridge District is unrealistic. Next slide. The Elm Ridge District stated in that their residents pay $13.95 per month for fire service agreement, not $13.50 as previously reported. The citizens of Elm Ridge do in fact pay $13.95 a month on their Mustang SUD bill for what is described as Aubrey Fire Plan. However, that is not the amount that is paid to the city of Aubrey on a monthly basis. Each year, the districts, Providence Village, and the city of Aubrey approve a budgeted amount associated with fire station number 2. For example, the amount of revenue budgeted in the districts and Providence Village to the city of Aubrey for fiscal year 2023 has been $2,179,334. The districts then divide that amount of money by the number of homes to reach a per house cost. That number currently stands at $13.40 per home. Interestingly, the reason the number is $13.40 rather than the $13.50 is the fact that the district used a capped budget amount of $2,179,433 and then divide that number by the number of homes at the beginning of each quarter. Rather than paying more for the service for new homes, they cap it and the districts decrease the amount due per house and continue to pay for the original budget number. So their current per house cost is actually equal to $13.40. Let me show you how we know this. Next slide. The documents you see here are the allocation of budgeted expenses by individual district. As you see at the top left, the budgeted amount, it's hard to see the top left right there, but it does say $2,179,334. If you come down to the middle of the page, you can see the individual house counts. And in the highlighted area, you see the amount per home. This first form is from the last quarter of 2023, and the second is from the first quarter of 2024, where you can clearly see that the districts are remitting an amount to the city of Aubrey that is equivalent to $13.40. Go to the other side, the highlighted yellow area, right there. If you divide that $2,179,433 by those house counts, you come up with $13.40 per house. So even though the citizens in Elm Ridge are paying $13.95 per month on their water bill for the Aubrey Fire Plan, the city of Aubrey is not receiving that full amount of money. This is misleading to the citizens who pay for a service, but the amount they pay is not going to the entity that is providing that service. I am assuming that we will have a new calculation for the second quarter later this month, which we will see another decrease in the per house amount due to the increasing number of homes that are built in these districts. So we increase the homes, we keep the same amount of number, but it causes more work for the firefighters who are in those areas. One item of note here, these documents created and sent out by the accountant for the districts. These documents are not made by the city of Aubrey. Final comments. Go to the next slide. Our responsibilities to the citizens of Aubrey, the citizens of our contractual strategic partners, and to this council are to provide effective, efficient, and cost-appropriate services that ensure the safety and security for all we serve. Our firefighters are dedicated to their duty, and I'm proud for what they have accomplished and achieved over the past 2 years. They have faced adversity, and in the past, they've had to do more with less, and they always have been proud to serve. With the support of this council, we have embarked upon a new era for the Aubrey Fire Department with the purchase of multiple apparatus, 2 new fire stations, and the construction is in progress. 2 fire stations in the construction process, and a great deal of new equipment for firefighter safety and saving the lives of our citizens. We have the best fire department and the best fire departments and the best firefighters and paramedics. Thanks to them for a job well done. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. I can take questions now, or we can wait until Chief Slaughter gets started and he and I can answer questions together. I know we wanted to do a Q&A here because I know the council has several questions regarding this.
Let's let Chief Slaughter go. And we'll do
Yes, sir.
everybody's questions together.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of council. My comments too in the presentation I'm about to provide are all prompted by misleading information that was provided by both municipal employees of other cities and water district employees. This information was shared in open meetings, on social media platforms, and prepared presentations. The information that's misleading that I'm going to talk about surround the budget process last year in the summer, mainly what Chief Breidler talked about, and then 2 other topics that have come up that are deeply concerning to me. One of which is our department operations surrounding the deliverance of mutual aid, both receiving and giving of mutual aid. And then also some information that was shared regarding station locations, response times, how best to serve certain areas. So before I get started and get into the meat of my presentation, I think it's important to kind of circle back and have a brief discussion about data, because that's really what this is all about. When you hear a misleading comment, it's simply data that was presented, and you can present data in a lot of ways. You can just let it stand alone. You can point it to support your position. It can be true information that's still misleading. It can be categorically false. It can be any mix of all of that. And I can demonstrate that for you in a simple way that I use in my job, and how I present data and how I use it in different manners. It's the exact same information. It's all true, but I make 2 very different points with that information, and I've done it. So most of you know that I'm I like to mentor young men and women that are looking to get into the fire service. So much so that I actually look for them. So when I meet somebody and I think they've got what it takes, I'll spark a conversation with them and say something like, hey, do you want to be a fireman? Have you ever thought about it? They said, nah, I never thought about it. And I say, hey, how about working 10 days a month? Right? So that's an accurate, that's factual. That's what we work. We work 10 days a month, 120 days a year. And normally that sparks the conversation. They're like, tell me more. And I say, it's a great job. And then I jump into the real meat of the discussion, which is the nobility of the job, protecting citizens, working with a great bunch of people and all those other things. And so what I've told you, that's true information. That's our schedule, broken down on a macro level to demonstrate how many days a year we work. So when you compare that, and I compare this data for these people, I say, hey, think about if you're working a 40-hour week, right? So you're gonna work 260 days a year, 20 days a month. It's more than double. So it's a real easy sell. I've compared data, all the data is true and accurate. And I've demonstrated that ours is a much better schedule to work, right? Everybody can agree with that. So then, and I'm giving you a pearl here because I've used this in this room before. So then when I need to make a counter argument and I'm looking to make my point about how much we work, now I need to demonstrate the opposite. I need to tell you that we work a ton of hours and we need these benefits to go along with the amount of work that we put in. So now I'm just going to switch one variable. I'm going to switch from days and go to hours, right? So a conventional 40-hour a week employee that works the 260 days and the 20 days a month, they work 2,080 hours a year. That's the math, right? So firefighters, we work a different schedule. 10 days a month, 120 days a year, but we work 2,916 hours a year. So almost 900 more hours a year, almost half again more. So, right, that's the exact opposite presentation now. Now I'm giving you the data and I'm demonstrating that we work this incredibly more amount of hours a year. Same exact argument, just flip the variable. It's all true information. It's all data. And the only thing I did was change how I presented it. And so I think a lot of what's going on is some of this. Unfortunately, I think some of the information that's presented is categorically false and intended to be misleading, but other parts of it, I think, are just individuals using data to try to support their position. And that's human nature. I do the same thing. I'm going to use data to try to support anything that I'm trying to be successful in. And I hope that that's the impetus for a lot of these comments, is it's just people trying to find their way and get their point across. The problem with this, though, is that people often expect that statistical relationships that they hear are immutable, that they're fact. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And so whoever gets their information out first or sells it in a more convincing manner, that's normally what people believe. And it's very difficult then to provide counter information to try to kind of level the field. So most people know that you have to hear both sides. You got to get all the facts, all the information, especially in today's times where it seems like every bit of information you hear, there's some counter narrative about how it's fake or false, or, I mean, I think we all hear fake news a few hundred times a day now. and you charged me with evaluating the fire department and its operations. That included evaluating our service contracts, and we have a few. So in evaluating our contract with what I'm going to call the districts, which include the Paloma Creek districts, Elm Ridge, and Providence Village, I met with the district managers of Elm Ridge, and then also the district manager that served a few of the 5 Paloma Creek districts. So Paloma Creek's made up of 5 districts. Elm Ridge is made up of 3 areas, and then Providence Village. Those are the parties to this contract that we're talking about. So in December 22, that was my first meeting with those managers. It was introductory. We talked about the services we provide, past expectations. I was trying to get up to speed on how we operated, how they did things in the past. Even at this very first meeting, we were already starting to talk about the budget process and how that had happened in the past. I came to realize that we were operating 2 separate budgets, one for Fire Station 1 and one for Fire Station 2. In evaluating those budgets, I very quickly found out that there were some problems. They didn't fully account for costs. It's nearly impossible. I would argue that not many people could truly drill down to the number that splits how all of our employees citywide, what work they put in at Fire Station 1 and what work they put into Fire Station 2. For example, I should be billing my hours tonight to the Fire Station 2 budget, if you will, because that's what we're talking about. But that's not how it works. And in municipal government, most cities and departments have one costing center, one fire department budget. So that was my push from the very beginning, was to get to one single budget so that we could account for costs, see what we were doing. And remember, if you will, that all at the same time, we're completely changing our operational model. We're adding personnel, we're getting vehicles, we're updating equipment, we're addressing several operational issues all at the exact same time as all of this is happening. July of 2023, June, July come around, we've got our budget presentation ready, and we're preparing to meet with the Paloma Creek Liaison Committee. So in our contract, there's a liaison committee that's spelled out. This is not that, I found out later. But we met with this group. I met with this group from December to July. January, February, there's a meeting every month. We would talk about operational issues. I would tell them about our call volume. They would ask questions about changes we were making. If you remember, there was one issue with the purchase of ambulances that came up in one of those meetings. And then June and July come around and we make our budget presentation to the committee. In making that presentation, I provided 3 documents. I provided an executive summary that we'll look at here in just a second. I created and presented that cost analysis that you saw. And then I gave them a copy of an in-code printout of the unified fire department budget. Another point that I just want to side note very quickly is that in April, AAA went away and the fire department assumed operations of the EMS function in this area as well. So let's jump and look at the executive summary. It's difficult to read this. The executive summary, basically, I point out that it's time to get into the budget. It has our offer on the next page. We'll get to that. It's highlighted. And I talk about the split budgets in the past and how the costs weren't effectively distributed amongst the 2, and that drives the need for one single budget. And that we had decided to combine those for this presentation. I talk about how I believe that those errors weren't purposeful, but that it led to errors in accounting between the 2 departments. And it's important to note that when you have 2 budgets and you manipulate one to make the other one always stay balanced, you create a false sense of solvency. So if you create a budget and you make it land on the money every time because you're using this one to support it, well, then this one's really not balanced, and it's really not accurate, and it's really not a true representation of cost. And that's what I found was happening. This is the second page of the same executive summary. The highlighted section, it says tentatively, we would propose a fixed rate of $17.50 per house per month for the first 3 years of a new 5-year agreement, with an option for a CPI increase in years 4 and 5 of the agreement. The bullet number 1 says that we want to amend our contract and enter into a new 5-year term. The contract that we have currently expires on December 31st of 2025. That's not changed. So then I tell them we want to amend it. We want to propose going to this fixed rate. So the fixed rate would be, it would vary with the houses. We explained that as you add more houses, that's more money, because that drives more calls, and creates more need for service. And it also, interestingly enough, calms the need for future increases. So if you're growing your area, which is automatically growing your revenue, there's less need to continue to ask for more money to raise the rate. Makes sense, right? It automatically inflates itself. Kind of like the rest of our budgets operate. As values of houses go up or tax rates go up, the money goes up automatically. In presenting this, we agreed that if we went with the fixed rate option, that we would remove the payment for the lease of the fire truck. So the fire truck that's at fire station number 2 is part of this contract, and it's on a lease purchase, and we receive payments for those lease payments for that truck. In discussing this option with the managers, they requested that we provide a legacy option. I came up with that term legacy in a similar manner to the way that we had done it in the past. So we accepted that we were combining the budget regardless of what option we went with, but they wanted to see it both ways, the fixed rate for 3 years and then the way they had always done it. And then 5 says that we're not going to support 2 budgets, that we've combined them. And then 6, and this is important when we flip over to the cost analysis, is that distributive cost. So costs that can't be pointed at one or the other, we just split down the middle because there's 2 fire stations. So those costs that are just used to manage the fire department as a whole, if you have 2 fire stations, we divide it by 2. In the future years in our presentation, we knew that we were adding a 3rd fire station. So in those out years, we divided those numbers by 3. They increased, but we divided by 3, which actually drives our total cost down, as you'll see in just a second. So the next document, here's the cost analysis. You saw this before. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have put as much information on here, but data's data. I was trying to give them a lot of data. So the split down the middle splits past and future. So the left side is titled performance. Those are things that had already happened. Those are our previous years in 2020, 2021, 2021, 22, 23. So we were operating in that 22-23 year. That budget had already been adopted prior to my arrival. That's the number that the chief mentioned a few times, at $2.179 million. That was our approved budget. You go down to the bottom on the revenue side, and we start to demonstrate how we got to that number. And you'll see the house rates, and those are from different quarters. Again, each quarter brings a new rate because of the distribution of the costs on their side. So a couple of notes here, because you do see some fairly sharp increases in the numbers when you go from the performance side over to the forecasted side. And those are fairly easily explained. And they were explained during the process. So first, we combined the budgets. So it makes sense. In those previous years, you were only looking at fire station number 2, or the portion of fire station number 2 that was included in that budget. Not the total cost for the station, but the numbers that were selected to be in that budget. It also doesn't include the operation of the EMS service. That was a separate entity that was operated in a separate, yet a 3rd budget that was operated. So, and that two was a private company. So we took on that service. Obviously, that has costs. Those are added in. The 23-24 numbers, so you have to remember at this time, that budget had not yet been adopted, so these were all proposed numbers. But they include many of the enhancements that we're so grateful that you approved for us. The lease agreement for the new medical equipment that's come in very handy in saving several lives. New vehicles, new air packs, new gear, things that we very badly needed and that you approved in the budget process. Those numbers are figured into here. Also includes costs associated with our medical direction. That number had not ever been included. So there were a lot of things added. That's the reason for the increase, is it's a true representation of our costs. So not only were we combining things and streamlining the process, but we were also enhancing the organization. So in those prior years, you had a part-time fire chief, a part-time assistant fire chief. You had one battalion chief. So we added full-time battalion chiefs. So we had one on all three shifts. We added an EMS captain. We added an administrative coordinator. You hired me, a full-time fire chief. We had a full-time assistant fire chief now. So there were a great many changes that make us a better organization, capable of providing a very high level of service to the citizens. And yes, those do come with a cost. And yes, I believe those are reasonable. And that's what was presented. You can see at the bottom, where the two zeros occur in the first and third column on the forecast side. That's where we demonstrate that we've removed capital costs for the fire truck and any debt service costs related to other purchases in those areas. Because that was one of the bullets on the executive summary, that we removed those costs and figured them into the general operation of that station. You can see the two legacy rates. Those have been conveniently used to demonstrate that higher proposed rate. We never actually proposed either of those rates. We simply demonstrated them at the request of one of the managers. And you can see that, you can view that in the executive summary. And then I'm about to roll the page to another document that I provided the following month, or a couple of weeks later in July, when we met with the individual boards, because this document was starting to create a stir and there were starting to be issues with it. So we thought that we should streamline our information and delivery. And so this third sheet was created. So you see a change in how we talk about the cost. So NAVO station costs per FTE 2023-2024. That's full-time employee equivalent. That is a phrase that's used throughout our contract. So I felt that it was necessary to kind of circle back to what our contract says, that we demonstrate our cost per employee. That's how we break that down. What I'd like to point out specifically is that if you go down the costs, so you have personnel, the costs you see on the left, the categories, those are the sections in our budget. Personnel, materials, they're fairly self-explanatory. You come down to the total cost, there's an offset. That offset is other revenues that we give credit for. Then you get down to that, we break it down into a cost per month times 18, there's 18 employees assigned to that station. And then you get down to what should look like a familiar number, that 2583. So if we go back, the 2583 is the rate in that fixed rate column, which demonstrates that 1750 per month per house. It's also important to note on this document, there's no mention of how many years. This was just in an attempt to try to get the wheels kind of back on the thing and getting down the right road. And so we were just trying to get to a rate that demonstrated an increase to cover our costs for the 2023-2024 year. We were still offering that new 5-year agreement, but at this point, we were starting to not think that that was going to be an option. So back to our timeline, in August, it became very apparent that no agreement was going to be reached. when I made my rounds to the individual districts, to actually talk to them and make this same presentation that I made to the committee, I was told that I had 3 minutes. I made my presentation, provided the documents that we just reviewed, and there were no questions. And then I would leave the meeting. In October, obviously, you know that we adopted our new budget. There was no change in the rate. So we're still receiving the same rate from the last rate change in our contract. So if we don't ask for an increase, the rate stays the same. That's where we're at. And again, just to summarize, our contract is valid through December 31st of 2025. I'm going to switch gears now a little bit to talk about before I move on. We did withdraw. We formally withdrew our request for an increase. So there was a document created saying that we did not want an increase and that we would agree to continue to operate at the rate that was approved in the contract. Which I wish I could say was a set number, but it was that 2179334 divided by the number of houses in each quarter. We're going to switch now and talk about the 2 other topics. And while this is very important, and this is very clearly the cause of all these other goings on, these next 2 are actually a little bit more concerning to me because they start to challenge the good work that your men and women of the Aubrey Fire Department do every single day. And I have great concern with them. So let's talk about some stats real quick. This is 2023 for us. We have 43 sworn positions. Those are all of your firefighters, everybody that's certified or commissioned as a firefighter, EMT, paramedic. We have 1 civilian position, that's our administrative coordinator, perhaps one of the hardest working people in the fire department. So a little dig for her there. Calls for service in 2023, 5,272 calls. It's an incredible amount of work put in by your firefighters. So let's break down that 5272. Fire calls amount for 1,740 of those. EMS calls 3,532. We answer all of those calls with our 2 fire stations where we operate 2 fire engines, 2 ambulances, and I'll talk about the 3rd one here in just a minute, 2 brush trucks, a battalion chief or command vehicle, and 4 administrative vehicles. I added our budget in again for 23-24. This budget is our operating budget minus our debt service and our vehicle replacement fund. So we have a total that totals out to $6,687,424 for 23-24. Interestingly, we answer about this year, we answered 1,745 calls in those districts, which amounts to 33% of our total run volume. So we answer these calls for service out of our current 2 fire stations. So fire station 1 is catty corner across the street at 200 West Sycamore Street, where we operate engine 521. It always has at least 3 personnel on it. That's our minimum staffing. Medic 521 that has 2 personnel minimum. Medic 523, this is our 3rd ambulance. We call it our power unit. We bring that up when we have enough staffing, or we staff it with administrative personnel when we have a high call volume. So when we're really being taxed, we'll bring this unit online to help offset load and add capacity to our system. Station 1 also houses our shift commander, which is Battalion 521. That's a minimum of 1 person every day. In the administrative side of our organization, the whole administration is housed at Fire Station number 1, and it includes our EMS captain, our fire marshal, our assistant fire chief, and the fire chief. And of course, all of our workload is split on any given day between those 2 stations. Fire station number 2 is located at 2020 Naval Road. And they staff engine 522 daily with a minimum of 3 personnel and medic 522 with 2 personnel. Of course, our future is bright and we have Fire Station 3 under construction. Fire Station 3 is to be located at 4425 FM 2931. If you're not familiar with that, it's at Frontier and 2931, which is the gateway into the Silverado community or just north of Providence Village. That station is moving along, not as fast as I'd like, but it's moving along and it's scheduled to open in early 2025. That station will house Ladder 523 with 4 personnel, Medic 523 with 2 personnel. And the battalion chief is going to move from Station 1 to Station 3 because it's more centrally located in our area. And then we've been working on relocating Fire Station number 2 from 2020 Naval Road over to Wind Ridge Boulevard and Aslan Circle. That address hasn't been assigned just yet, but there's Aslan is a circle and the station is in between the 2 ends of Aslan. And it's just off of 1385. So when you turn off of 1385 on the Wind Ridge Boulevard, you're about 1,000 feet in when you get to this portion of the block where the station's to be located. Design is complete. The bid packet has been put out for publication, and we anticipate construction starting this summer. That station will house engine 522 with 3 personnel and medic 522 with 2 personnel. So the engine and medic will simply move from the existing fire station number 2 over to the relocated fire station number 2. The relocation was driven for a couple of reasons, and that'll lead us into some comments when we talk a little bit deeper about the location. But Little Elm Fire Station number 3 and Aubrey Fire Station number 2 currently are about 400 or 500 yards apart on Naval Road. They're very, very close together, which is not a great setup because you duplicate effort. You want them to be further apart, close enough to help each other, close enough to serve the area, but not right on top of each other. So, but back to mutual aid. So here's our stations. Here's what we've got coming. So mutual aid in particular, this was a point of contention. And so much so that we received a letter accusing us of operating in bad faith and making bad operational decisions in terms of mutual aid. So essentially the letter suggested that we had changed our mutual aid operation method as a means of retaliation as a result of the ongoing dispute over our contract. So again, it's data. It's all data, right? So in a presentation made by another municipal employee, there was a demonstration that showed some mutual aid information from their side that demonstrated that they have to help us a lot, 222 times in a year. And conversely, we only help them 33 times. And I think the term was something along the lines of when somebody has to call for help that much, it demonstrates that they're not handling their responsibilities. I take some offense to that. I think we handle our responsibilities nicely, and I think that was demonstrated earlier tonight. But so I looked at the last 180 days. Take this data as you will. This is the last 180 days. 2,740 calls for service were answered in that time period, from September 29th of 23 to March 27th of 24. During that time period, we asked people to help us 116 times, 4.2% of our total call volume. So less than 5% of the time, we have to say, hey, we need a little help from one of our partners. And I, with intent, did not include any of the partners that help us because it's varied. Everybody helps everybody. It's kind of what keeps the system afloat. During that same period of time, 180 days, 2,740 calls of service, we gave aid to other people 99 times. So if somebody called us and said, hey, can you help us out a little bit? Of course, we said, certainly. 99 times, so 3.6% of our total call volume was helping other people. So I don't think it's disparate. I think it's pretty close. But again, it's data, so we need to dig a little bit deeper to get into what that data means, because you just can't categorically say help, because not all help is the same. So it's important to describe what that help means. So for us, I divided it into the biggest categories. So the majority of our help, the majority of the time that we say, hey, we need some help handling a call, what we really need is a transport ambulance. We're on scene with our firefighter paramedics taking care of an individual. We just don't have an ambulance available to transport them to the hospital. So we're still providing advanced life support care. We have all the same equipment on our engines that we do on our ambulances, and we're there taking care of the person. Our ambulances are simply out of service. They're at the hospital, or they're transporting another patient, or we have stacked calls. So of our 116 times of asking for help, 70 of those, or 60% of that number, we only needed an ambulance. We were there, we answered our call, we got there quickly, we took care of the person. We just needed an ambulance to take them, to finish it off and take them to the hospital. The next highest number are canceled. So you might ask, why do we even count that number? We still want to track that we called and asked somebody for help. We're being cautious. You know, either the event sounded so bad that we thought we were going to need more help, or we got there and it wasn't what it seemed, and we didn't need the help, so we canceled the help. They didn't make it. So we called and said, hey, can you help us out? We get there and start to sort it out, and we go, hey, never mind. Thanks. You know, appreciate the help. 26 of those, 22%, 22.4% of that 116 times we called for help. So now we're at 82.7% of our aid is either just needing an ambulance, or we didn't really need help at all. We're being cautious. Fires, house fires in particular, takes a lot of people, a lot of fire trucks. There's only really one fire department in Denton County that can handle a structure fire, first alarm residential structure fire assignment with internal units, and that's the city of Denton. Every other city calls for help because it's a big event. You need a lot of help to be safe. We call a lot of units. Typically, you're going to get 3 or 4 engines, a ladder truck, shift commander, a couple of ambulances. That's kind of a general first alarm assignment for residential fire. So a lot of vehicles, a lot of people. These are dangerous, dynamic situations. And so everybody universally, with the exception of potentially the city of Denton, has to call for help to handle those when they occur. So I put a little asterisk beside it because everybody's got to do it. But of our 116 times that we asked for help, 9 of those were for fires. Engine only, the next category. So this is a situation where we received calls and our ambulance was available and made the call, but we needed a little bit of extra help. So the way our model works, we like to put a lot of people on scene for medical calls so that we can do a lot of work really quickly and then be ready for the ride to the hospital. And so our ambulance was there, our engine was tied up on another call for whatever reason. And so we called for an engine only to come help us. And so those are shorter duration, and there weren't many of those during this period. There were 6 times where we called for an engine only to come assist one of our ambulances. The next category, and to me, as a fire chief, this is the most important one of all the categories. I labeled it full assist. And basically what this represents is we were not able to answer our call at all. We were completely tied up. All of our availability was consumed, and we needed another organization to take the entirety of that call for us, regardless of whatever it was. An ambulance call, or I think in this batch, there was a carbon monoxide alarm going off that we couldn't respond to that call. We were on another call. We couldn't shed any units, which we try to do. And so we had to ask somebody for a lot of help. We need you to take this whole call for us. And so there were 4 of those. 3.4% of the 116 times. So 4 out of 2,740 times could you reasonably make the argument that we didn't handle our responsibility to our citizens? It's important to note that we were already handling our responsibility to our citizens, so much so that we couldn't answer one more call. And then the last category, and this one I think is kind of shouldn't really count in the group, but it's there, it's how it gets labeled in our record management system. This is where an organization self-dispatches itself to another jurisdiction's call when they weren't asked to join. So this is where we went to a call and one of our neighboring departments heard it, or they were close and saw it, and they came to help us, but we did not ask for help. We weren't taxed beyond our limits. We responded in full to our call. They just happened to come with us. A lot of times what this is we'll have a house fire or a call that comes out as a house fire. And another agency hears it and they feel like they're fairly close, so they tag along. So there was one of those where another agency heard a call and joined in. And so this whole category, as I've described all those, are the times that we asked for help. 116 times broken down in those categories. If you jump over to the other side and you look at how we help other people, you kind of see the same setup. 99 times, 30 times of that 99 was just an ambulance. One of our partners was consumed, they needed an ambulance only. And so we sent one of our ambulances to help him. 35 times we were canceled before we got there. So they called us for help. We said, sure, we're on our way. And before we could get there, we were canceled. Fires, where we go and assist other agencies with fires, there were 14 of those. Engine only 4, full assists. This is where one of our neighboring agencies was fully consumed. They couldn't answer their call. We did that 14 times. So, and then self-dispatch 2. So while our total aid received is higher than our total aid given, although they're pretty close, one of the more important numbers to look at is that full assist, where you have to go and it's the whole call. The agency where it's at, they can't respond at all. We asked for that 4 times, we gave that 14 times. To me, that's pretty even. All those numbers are pretty even. I think if you were to look at this and take it to a university and have somebody in the math department put their statistical whammy on it, deviation, and that there's not really even enough data here to draw a lot of conclusion from it because it's so close to even. And I think that's where we're at. And honestly, this is pretty refreshing for me because I didn't look at this number before now. You know why? Because I don't keep count on this. If you need us, we're coming 100% of the time. That's what every one of these guys signed on to do. I don't care where you're at. You ring our phone and say, we need your help. If we can help, you're getting Aubrey Fire Department. We're coming to help and we're going to sort stuff out when we get there. Conversely, I'll admit it, we have to call for help. It might be a surprise to everybody in the room, but Denton County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. We can't grow our department fast enough to handle the demands of our call volume. I fully admit it. You hear me every time that I've talked to you in a budget session about what we need moving forward, how we're going to grow, where we're going to put our stations, how we're going to add people. All of those are to address a growing call volume. In January of this year, we broke 500 runs. We've only done that 3 times in the history of the Aubrey Fire Department. Yes, our call volume is growing. Yes, that's going to tax us. Yes, we're going to have to ask for help from time to time. But I think we're pretty fair in how we do it, and we certainly are always prepared to give it back. And so that's my comments on mutual aid. I'm pretty passionate about this. I'm sure you could tell it was coming through there a little bit. But I think that this data fairly represents how we operate in that area. Next, shift gears, station location. There were some comments about who's closer, what's safer, which part's better. So I've told you the addresses, but I want to show you a study that we had. So the information, the misinformation or the confusing information that I'm trying to counter here is a map that was provided in a fire plan application to the TCEQ that demonstrates that the current Aubrey Fire Station number 2 and the Little Elm Fire Station number 3 are very close to one another. That's obvious. But that the Little Elm Station 3 is positioned to where it actually services the residents of Elm Ridge better than the Aubrey Fire Station number 2. Now, this map only uses one singular point in those districts that favors the position of Little Elm Fire Station number 3. So again, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't try to suggest that, but to look at that, you kind of need to look at the entire area, right? There's roads that go all different ways, traffic flows in different manners, and so you really need to evaluate the entire area. So we had one of our traffic engineers do just that for us. So this is Aubrey Fire Station number 2 is the little blue pin in the center. It's 2020 Nabo Road. The green circle is 1 mile. Yellow circle's 2 miles, red circle's 3 miles. This is not an exact science, but roughly 2 miles equates to a 4-minute response time with optimal driving conditions. Now, the size of the road, and how many turns you have to make and how many lights there are, all those are factors that play into that. But as a really gross rule of thumb for fire chiefs, when they're looking for distances, 2 miles equals 4 minutes. So that's our fire station number 2, where it's currently located. That's Little Elm Fire Station number 3. So I'm going to go back and forth for you. I want you to see if you can pick up the difference. That's us. That's them. So the next one I'm going to show you is an overlay of the 2 of us, right? So these are both existing fire stations. This is where we operate out of every day right now. So those are our 2 stations overlaid with both area circles demonstrated. So I think it's safe to say that there's not a gross difference in our ability to respond from these 2 locations, and that neither one probably has a big advantage on the other. I think that's probably the safer way to demonstrate this advantage, that there is no advantage, that it's reasonably the same. And in particular, the 2 areas that are serviced through this contract in Elm Ridge are Arrowbrook and Savannah. Arrowbrook's to the north, Savannah's to the south. You can see in both of these circles that Savannah is primarily in that 2-mile ring. Arrowbrook's mostly in the 3-mile ring. This also, I think, more appropriately demonstrates the duplicity of where our stations are located. So the next thing I want to show you is our proposed fire station number 2, the station that we're building or about to build. So here's Aubrey Fire Station number 2 when it's located on Windridge Boulevard and Aslan Circle. The same metrics, not trying to trick anybody with some different distances. Green's 1 mile, yellow's 2 miles, red's 3 miles. So you see that you change the dynamic quite a bit, most importantly in the community of Arrowbrook. Here's the 2 laid over, one on top of the other. So this is the southern dot, the red dot is the Little Elm Fire Station number 3 current location. And the northern one is our future Fire Station 2 location. And so you see that both have advantages, both have disadvantages, depending on where exactly you're going in either one of these areas. We have another document. I didn't include it in here. I intended to, but it's a drive time analysis that gives a min and a max for both Arrowbrook and Savannah. And it says exactly what you would think it would say. We're faster to Arrowbrook in this configuration than we are to Savannah. Little Elm's faster to Savannah than it is to Arrowbrook. It says exactly what this map demonstrates. But it also says that even when we're stacked together, that our times are effectively exactly the same, depending on where you're going. And so that's all I have on the location and the mutual aid and budget. I know that you have questions. Chief Kreidler and I are both prepared to answer anything that you might have for us. I thank you very much for your time, and hopefully that this has been helpful. Hopefully there are people that are watching that hear this information and consume it, and it at least piques their interest to seek more answers. This isn't all the data. What they've heard previously is not all the data. There's more to be heard. There's more to every story. And hopefully, everyone involved hears both sides before they start to make decisions that impact both of our service areas. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So we proposed them $17.50 a house and they said, we don't like that. Well, what did they counter offer during their negotiations?
So there was no counteroffer. No counteroffer made by any of those areas. So we presented it clearly to the committee. And so this Paloma Creek Public Safety Liaison Committee is made up of members, a couple of members from each of the districts of the Paloma districts. And then they'll invite other people to the meeting. So in that July meeting where we presented the budget, you had the members of the committee from the Paloma districts. You had the Elm Ridge, I think the president was there and the manager was there and maybe one or two others. You had some of their staff there. And so they heard the presentation. It was pretty obvious to us that things weren't going well, and that things had taken a turn. So, we knew we were going to make the rounds to all the individual district meetings, the board meetings, and present this information and hopefully have a chance to kind of calm things down and talk about it, and have a discussion and see if we could get to that counter. And clearly, you saw in our document said proposed. Our budget hadn't been approved, so there was nothing finalized in terms of that. We could have considered other options up until the point that we adopted our budget, even past that in actuality. So, but no, we did not receive a counter offer, and we haven't yet to this point.
It seems typical that if you were a reasonable person and you intended to continue on the contract that you're on, if you didn't like what was proposed, you would at least propose an alternate that you maybe were more comfortable with.
I think that'd be very reasonable. I would go so far as to say that we anticipated that there would be a counter offer. Most people do when they negotiate anything.
Do all the districts pay the same amount per house?
No. That's one issue that I can't speak greatly to, but you can see it. That information is provided on the Mustang website where it shows what's on the individual district's water bills, and that rate varies from $13, I believe, to as high as $15 per house per month.
That's what I would say. That's going to be certified defense.
So Chief, as you've been meeting with all these boards of all these different groups, how many of those board members are residents of that?
I can't give you a full number. I believe that the Elm Ridge Board is made up of citizens. The Paloma Creek, the 5 districts, I know that a few of those do not have many residents on them. They're still developer controlled. And so those are positions that are appointed. So we're not dealing with residents from those neighborhoods.
So the residents aren't necessarily the ones that are making the decisions, really.
Absolutely.
So Chief, are you or the city manager doing anything to push the firefighters association to make comments or oppose the election?
The only thing that we've done on the city side for the firefighter association at this point is we've responded to an FOI that they gave to us and we've provided them with documents. And that's the extent of our involvement with the firefighters union.
I want to answer that same question and I want to qualify my answer. So the primary answer to your question is no, we're not driving that narrative. But, and I very clearly want to state this so that everybody can hear, and I hope there's people listening that hear this from the cheap seats. I categorically support every man and woman of the Aubrey Fire Department, 100%. And I want to make a point, and hopefully it's a strong one here tonight, that they're the only ones that have any skin in this game. Right? So no matter how this shakes out, whether we end the contract or we keep the contract, all the board members, the council members, the managers, all those people, the lawyers, they're not fazed, right? Nothing happens plus or minus. Those folks, if we lose those contracts, if we lose that revenue, there's a potential there. And that's what they fear, and it's a reasonable fear, and they're just in trying to defend themselves. So I absolutely, with every ounce of my being, support everything that they're doing. The reason I say that is that that comment has come up that I'm supporting them on my personal Facebook page. I absolutely am supporting them. I would step out in front of traffic for them right now if I thought I needed to. And so absolutely categorically, I support them. Am I pushing their narrative? No. They're acting on their own to defend themselves, and very rightfully so, I believe.
I think I can speak for council and tell you guys that we've got your back, regardless what happens with all this. Okay? Because y'all are what we care about.
Hi, I am Felicia Payswich, 1801 Gold Mine Trail. That is also known as Arrowbrook, so I am from Elm Ridge. Don't hate me.
Hey, you're a resident. We like you.
So I just wanted to clarify some few things because I think Chief Schlover is being way too nice. So I am currently running for the board for a few reasons. And I have been following this for a really long time. Before I even knew that they were in contract negotiations, I had asked our board to consider switching us to Salina because they are opening their new fire station right across from us. It makes the most sense. I want the quickest service to my house. I've had a house burned down. I've had a 5-year-old cousin die. I know how important these people are. Plain and simple. So with that being said, I do want to make you guys aware that the person he is speaking about with Paloma Creek, the general manager, he is also the customer service manager and the project manager for Elm Ridge. We didn't even know this until these happenings had started. Conflict of interest much? Okay. Then from there, I also want to let you guys know that we have a community that's part of Elm Ridge. It is Artesia. They are located in Prosper and they get fire service through Prosper Fire Department. They pay $16.25 a month. I don't understand why Elm Ridge was not okay with us having an increased rate. One of their other communities pays more than what we pay. It's mind blowing to me. And then let's just see. So yes, so Elm Ridge is comprised of 5 residents. 4 members are from Savannah, 1 is Artesia. No representation from Arrowbrook, which is why I'm running. And then Chief Slaughter was also talking about response time. With Little Elm, they actually dispatch through the city of Denton. We don't. We use Denton County. So if we were to switch fire services to Little Elm, that would increase our response time. Because we would then be calling 911, Denton County would be answering, then Denton County would be like, oh, you need fire? Okay, let me transfer you to the city of Denton. Then city of Denton dispatch would answer, we have to go through our whole spiel of what we need. And then finally, Little Elm would be able to service us. To me, as a resident, it does not make sense as to why we are changing to Little Elm. And I have been opposed to it. And unfortunately, I am one of the very few residents who go to the Elm Ridge board meetings. Most people don't even know what's happening. So I urge the education because over 600 people voted early voting last time we had an election. Only 300 voted on the day of. So April 22nd, early voting starts. That's when we need this education out there. because otherwise you're risking one of our lives. And these guys are more than happy to service us. We want them to service us, especially with the new fire station opening. The more you can push that, Arrowbrook will have the back of these firemen. It's literally 2 streets over from my house. There's no reason I should be going and calling Little Elm for help. It should be Aubrey. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. With the districts taking issue to the county funding and EMS building, does the proposed contract with Little M include any offsets for those funds?
So the contract, as I've seen it, and it was a document attached to the council meeting when they approved it, it does not include an offset. It has a fixed rate, with no consideration for other revenues. And I think it's important to note that Little Elm has both of those revenues. These areas will still remain in the county, so there's a county funding offset for the call. And then they too receive ambulance, billing revenues.
So they expect a benefit or a refund of that county funding for lost but not for expected future.
It would seem so.
From the information I've seen, it would appear that they were expecting a refund of money from us. Based on that, but this new contract, no, there's nothing in it that says they're entitled to any funding from the county, which is very strange to me. If it's expected from us, why isn't it expected from another entity?
Chief, is the fire plan we've talked about in the past the same thing as the contract we're talking about now?
No. And so that's one thing that I think gets very quickly confused in this process. Even so much as to when we say contract negotiations, we were not negotiating our contract. We were proposing a budget increase in our existing contract term. But the fire plan, and perhaps Patricia or Chief Kryler can help a little bit, but the fire plan is a founding document that's made up of basically a series of proving statements, but it's a device that a water district or a special utility district or a WICID or a MUD that they have to use to prove that they can provide these emergency services to the residents once they form. So basically what you have when you build one of these districts is you have a higher than normal density of housing, basically a city, but you don't have the services to protect them. And so I think what the state was thinking was we need to make sure that these safeties are provided. So the fire plan, they have to create this document that proves who's going to come. It demonstrates all of the fire departments in the area. It talks about who would be the best to provide the service. And then it's approved by an election of the citizens in that area. And it exists separate from the contract. So once there's the fire plan identifies who the provider is going to be. Doesn't talk about funding or money or any of those things. It just says who's going to provide it, who's best to provide it, and that they have the right tools to provide an adequate service. So then once you have a fire plan, then you negotiate a contract. There is at least one MUD in Denton County that doesn't have a contract. And then there's other MUDs that use different methods for how they have contracts. So there's a lot of variation on the contract side, but the fire plan is very universal across the state.
Well, you said something there. You said when you have a fire plan, then you negotiate a contract. Except what seems to be happening right now is they've negotiated a contract and still trying to get a fire plan. So
That's I believe a correct statement. They have approved a contract with Little Elm for services starting in November of 24. And there is no current fire plan that demonstrates that Little Elm is the fire service provider for these areas.
any other questions?
Sure appreciate what you guys do.
I have had one request that I'd like to mention and get some guidance from you. I've had a few requests asking whether or not we can make all these documents available on our website, the city website, or some way universally available for people to see.
I don't have any problem with them being made available. That's public information. I'm trying to hide anything.
There you go.
Yeah, I think the only shame is that you're being put in a position where you're being forced to justify this. And we all know the cost of everything goes up. So you guys have to come in and spend time doing this. It's a real shame. But I'm proud of you for doing it. Proud of you guys.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Mayor, I take from that you'd like for us to put the available documents on the internet, on our website, in a conspicuous area.
Department updates. Charles, you have any? On that now?
I don't have anything.
Britton? Chicken? Britton West? Fire.
I guess it's me again. All right, so an update on fire stations 2 and 3. So fire station 3, we had our OAC meeting today at 2:00. Things are moving along. I joke about the speed of the construction, and I don't think they could meet my expectation regardless of how hard they tried, but the weather has been a challenge. So we get 3 or 4 great days in, and then it rains, slows everything down. But they are progressing nicely. The western side, if you will, of the approach and the western parking lot and half of the back fire lane have been poured. They have the grade beams cut in, and they're cutting the helical piles to grade. So the grade beams are the concrete that connect the helical piles that form the base of the foundation. They expect to pour those next week. They've got to do some grading on what we would call the eastern parking lot and approach. And so they hope to pour that possibly late this week, or I think late next week. So, excuse me, steady work, moving along. It's kind of fun. We're picking colors and styles and designs of things. And I can tell you that Chief Brooks and I are not well prepared to pick colors of things, and they showed us a couple colors of some rocks today, and I thought they were all the same color. We'll see what happens, you know. But I should ask my wife to come with me. She'd help us out. But
Yeah, that's what I have to do.
but we're on track. I don't think we're badly off. I think to date, we've had 23 days of missed work because of weather. We talk about these every time we meet and what it means, and we talk about the next 3-week outlook. So once we get some more concrete poured, once we get the foundation done, then let it rain. You know, they can work regardless of what the weather is. On Fire Station 2, we're in a very exciting phase in its process. So we have finished the construction document. They're 100% complete. The bid announcement was in the paper today. It'll be in the paper next week. I believe our meeting to discuss the bid with potential bidders is April 8th, with a due date for the bids being April 15th. And we fully expect to have a recommendation in front of you for the April council meeting to award a construction bid to start the process. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. All right, thank you.
Update on the new council chamber. Met with the construction company today at 1, and we will begin demolition on Monday. And they're going to provide, Monday, they'll provide a new schedule. It appears we made some last minute changes, but sometime early July should be completed, hopefully for the July council meeting. Any questions?
No weather delays on that. And we need to be sure the AC works for July.
I'm not Brittany. But
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you that the library will be closed on Friday for Good Friday. Brittany could not be here tonight. I sent her home earlier. So the library will be closed on Friday for Good Friday. They will be open on Saturday. They do have a number of events coming up. I do not have that information in my hands, but it is all on their Facebook site, Aubrey Area Library. Look that up on Facebook and you can find their events.
Public Works.
Mayor, council, I just want to give you an update on our two water wells. As you're aware, we do have two wells out of service right now. The Faulkner well, Hydro is our contractor. They confirmed today that they'll be here tomorrow. They're gonna pull the well. Our new pump and motor, we're still out. We're expecting the last one to come in April 15th. If it comes in, then hopefully it'll take 2 days to get it installed and we can get it up and running. The Rock Hill well, as you're aware, we were doing some maintenance on it to improve its capacity and there was a malfunction with the column pipe. The threads separated and they dropped the pump and motor. We still have not been able to retrieve it. It's down about 1,400 feet. So they've been able to remove a bunch of debris, all of the air tubing, all of the electrical cabling. You know, it comes out a piece at a time. You get down 1,400 feet, you see what you brought up, you go back down, you just keep doing it. They did run a camera down. They were able to blow the well. They got it cleaned off. They ran a camera down. The problem is they're having to specialty machine tools to try to get a hold of it to pull it out. There's very little room for them to clamp onto it and pull it out. So it's not out yet, but they're working 6.5 days a week to get it out. And hopefully we'll have some better news next week. Good news for that one, we do have a brand new pump motor, everything here to install once they get it out.
Really long crabbers.
Yeah. Future agenda request, council or board members, staff, citizens may request items to be included on future agendas. Discussions limited to what that request is for, if and when it can be put on a future agenda. And then. All right, executive session. In accordance with Texas Government Code, section 551.001, EDSEC, the city council will recess into executive session to discuss the following. 551.071, 1 and 2, consultation with attorney. Section 551.072, real property. And section 551.071, 2 and 551.074, personnel matters.
I'll make a motion to recess into executive session.
Second. Motion by Randy, second by Matt, all in favor? 4-0. Take up the.
Stretch my legs a minute.
All right, we'll reconvene in the open session. Doesn't ask me for the time, but I'm gonna say it anyway, it's 11:10.
Okay. I'd like to move to direct the city manager to proceed with the MDD purchase of property on Highway 377.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Chuck, second by Matt, all in favor? Passes 3-0.
And I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to proceed with organizational staffing changes for the police department and to bring back an updated personnel plan at the next meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Matt, second by Chuck, all in favor? Passes 3-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.
First ever.
Get 'em hired.
Yeah. Jeff loved that shit.